Let me bring in the panel. Spectrum News Washington, D.C. reporter Evan Koslof and Spectrum News political anchor Alex Cohen. Evan, takeaways from this news conference.
Well, I think the main focus was just lowering the temperature. These are two world leaders that have not met face-to-face in over a year. As Biden pointed out, it was 1 year and 1 day. So that was a big focus today, and they did get sort of a victory on that front. They announced today that they're restoring military communication. That's crucial if there's some point of conflict, something blows up that they need to talk about. Now they have that way to do it. He said, now we could call each other and we'll pick up. He had a few quotes, which I want to read for you here, saying that vital miscalculations can cause real trouble. Also saying that, we're talking with our competitors now, just talking and being blunt with each other so that there's no misunderstanding. He was asked whether he trusts President Xi, and to answer that, he said, trust, but verify. Also saying that he knows the man after their long relationship. Of course, they've had disagreements, but he believes that he's being straight. So this is something that they're going to be able to now pick up the phone and talk. A number of other issues that they were also talking about politically, where Xi could say, look, we're now trying to do something to address the fentanyl crisis. But there are still issues that need to be discussed, in particular, the discussion about Taiwan. Sharon?
Yeah, definitely some progress. So, Alex, it's been a year since these two leaders have met face-to-face or even spoken. How important was this meeting for the two countries today? And do we expect any major breakthroughs?
I think it was incredibly important, especially considering that we are on the cusp of an election year. I think for President Biden, this is a very significant day to see if anything productive would actually come out of this meeting. One of the other things that was said today, actions speak louder than words. And I think that's really something to think about here. For example, the work mentioned on fentanyl. This has happened before when President Xi met with former President Donald Trump. They came up with this agreement about what they were going to do, and then there was no real follow-through. So I think now perhaps many people here in this country are a little bit reticent to see, okay, we've said some remarks today, this is what we're going to do, but will that actually happen? I think also for China, there's been a lot of talk about what relationship the U.S. has with this other growing superpower. And we heard the president today talking about the fact that we are competitors, but he said it's important to manage this competition responsibly. So I think this is the beginning of perhaps a warmer, gentler era, but not necessarily a cozy relationship by any means.
A warmer, gentler era. Very well said there. Evan, President Xi said the U.S. and China can rise above their differences. Earlier today, Xi said planet Earth is big enough for the two countries to succeed. Talk about some of the differences, but also where's the common ground?
Well, they are hoping that they can work together on artificial intelligence. Of course, the fentanyl issue that we've been talking about a lot. I mean, fentanyl is a crisis in this country. If the CDC is saying that 77,000 people died from overdoses from fentanyl in less than a year. Those are shocking statistics, and that's why there is this effort to try and do something on fentanyl. The DEA, here's how China connects. The DEA says that a primary source for fentanyl and the ingredients that creates fentanyl do come from China, and that's why this discussion is being talked about. But Alex hit it on the head right there, where this is just talk, and then the devil's in the details. Will it lead to actual action? That's going to be the big question. Biden speaking emotionally for a brief period here about all the people that have been impacted by fentanyl and other opioids.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds great that they're having these talks, but yes, let's see if this actually comes to fruition. So, Alex, there are more than 22 million Asians living in the U.S. Talk about the impact of this meeting on Chinese Americans.
I think it's a really interesting thing to consider, especially if you keep in mind that while we saw the president there giving his solo press conference, the President Xi Jinping is meeting with business leaders at a very expensive to attend dinner in the Bay Area. And although what was happening today, these hours that they met, was so carefully curated so that the Chinese president wouldn't see any protesters, the location itself wasn't released until right before it happened. Right now, he's in a very different situation where he is seeing front and center. There are descriptions of protesters in the streets criticizing China on many things, including their human rights records. And you have to keep in mind here that of all the people who have come here from China and whose descendants came here from China, many of them came because they were not happy with what was happening there in their homeland. And especially here in this country and here in California, we have so many people from various parts of Asia who have really received the brunt end of China's treatment. And I think there's going to be a lot of questioning, all very well and good to see these two world leaders shaking hands, cooperating. The president of China, apparently President Biden remarked that it was his wife's birthday coming up because he shares the same birthday, she rather does, as President Biden, and Xi Jinping saying, oh, I had almost forgotten. Thank you for reminding me. So very chummy and cordial. But for the average Asian American, and especially Chinese American, there is concerns about the way that President Xi is leading this country and how that affects people and then resonates here in the United States.
Yeah, there were some moments of levity there. Evan, let's talk about the politics of the situation. A lot of Americans are concerned by China's world power status. At one point, Xi told Biden he believed there was unfair negative publicity about the Chinese Communist Party in the U.S.
Right, and I think it's important to make the distinction between President Biden saying, look, we're taking steps to avoid a crisis and another conflict, but then there's also candidate Biden who is running for president again, and on both sides we're seeing sort of the tough on China philosophy that's being very effective with voters. You can look at a recent survey, for example, that found 58% of Americans that were asked said that they were concerned about China's world power status, saying that that is a critical threat. So, yeah, it's going to be a campaign issue for sure.
All right, Evan, thank you. And Evan Koslof in D.C. and Alex Cohen, I thank you both for your time today. And I thank you at home for watching. I'm Sharon Tazwell. More news right now on Spectrum News.